I still remember the day she burst into my life like a whirlwind, saving me from myself. I was on the brink, lost, broken. She extended her hand when everyone else turned away. She became my rock, my soul sister. But what happened next destroyed everything. And now, looking at her happy face, I feel only bitterness. Bitterness and unbearable pain. The pain of knowing I can never forgive her for what she did. The irony is that her salvation became my curse. My life before meeting her was a series of gray days. My marriage was falling apart. My job brought no satisfaction. And my children seemed to live their own, completely separate lives. I felt invisible, dissolving into routine. Every evening, I sat by the window watching the lights go out in neighboring houses and thought about how my own life was slowly fading away. I tried to find solace in alcohol, in endless TV shows, in empty conversations with equally tired friends, but nothing helped. The emptiness inside grew, consuming me entirely. I stopped recognizing myself in the mirror, dull eyes, slumped shoulders, constant fatigue. My husband Andrew seemed not to notice my state. He was absorbed in his work, his hobbies, his friends. Our conversations were reduced to mundane matters and touches became rare and distant. I felt lonelier than ever before. One day, after another sleepless night, I decided I couldn't go on like this. I had to change something or I would simply go crazy. I started looking for help but didn't know where to turn. Psychologists seemed superfluous to me and friends too busy with their own problems. And then, when I had almost despaired, she appeared. She was an old acquaintance with whom we once studied at the same university, but then our paths diverged. We accidentally met in a cafe, where I had gone to drink a cup of coffee and forget about my problems for a while. Svetlana immediately noticed my condition. Her penetrating gaze seemed to see right through me. She didn't ask unnecessary questions, just listened. And in her silence there was more support than in 1,000 words. She offered me her help, her friendship. And I, drowning in despair, clung to this straw as if it were salvation. I didn't know then that this salvation would turn into even greater pain for me. Svetlana became my light at the end of the tunnel. She pulled me out of the quagmire of depression, made me believe in myself again. We spent days together, walking in parks, going to the cinema, just chatting about everything. She knew how to listen like no one else, and her advice was always precise and wise. Next to her, I felt alive, interesting, needed. She helped me find a new job that brought me not only money, but also pleasure. She inspired me to exercise, to change my lifestyle. I started to change, and these changes did not go unnoticed. My husband, Andrew, suddenly began to show interest in me. He started noticing my new hairstyle, my smile, my energy. He began to spend more time at home. We started talking and laughing again. It seemed our marriage was getting a second wind. I was happy. I was grateful to Svetlana for everything she had done for me. She became my best friend, my sister, my savior. I entrusted her with my deepest secrets, shared my dreams and fears with her. I was sure that our friendship would last forever, but I was wrong. A big mistake. I couldn't imagine that behind all this care and support lay something much darker and more destructive. I was so blinded by my happiness that I didn't notice the alarm bells ringing around me. I didn't see Svetlana changing, how her gaze became colder and more distant. I didn't hear how her words became more poisonous and cynical. I was too busy with myself, with my new happiness, to notice that my savior was turning into my executioner. And when the truth came out, it was like a lightning strike. A strike that destroyed everything I had so carefully built. The first crack in our perfect friendship appeared subtly, almost imperceptibly. It started with small things. Svetlana would occasionally make a sarcastic remark about my husband Andrew, or subtly belittle my achievements at my new job. At first, I dismissed it as playful banter, a sign of our close bond. But then, her comments grew sharper, more frequent. She'd hint at Andrew's supposed lack of ambition, or suggest that my new colleagues were taking advantage of my kindness. I felt a growing unease, a tiny seed of doubt planted in my mind. I tried to talk to her about it, to tell her that her words sometimes hurt, but she would always brush it off with a laugh, accusing me of being too sensitive. "Oh, come on, you know I'm just teasing. Don't be so dramatic," she'd say. And I, wanting to believe in our friendship, would let it go. But the seeds of doubt had been sown and they began to sprout. I started to look at Andrew differently, to question his motives, to scrutinize his every word. Our renewed intimacy began to feel fragile, tainted by Svetlana's insidious whispers. I found myself becoming more irritable, more suspicious. Andrew noticed it too. He'd ask what was wrong, why I was so distant. I couldn't tell him. How could I explain that my best friend, the woman who had saved me, was slowly poisoning my mind against him? I felt trapped between my loyalty to Svetlana and my love for Andrei. The tension in our home grew a silent, suffocating presence. I started to avoid Svetlana, to make excuses when she called. But she was persistent, almost possessive. She'd show up at my work or at my home, unannounced, with a knowing look in her eyes. It was as if she enjoyed seeing the turmoil she was creating. I was confused, hurt, and increasingly afraid. The woman who had once been my savior was now becoming my tormentor, and I had no idea why. The breaking point came on a rainy Tuesday evening. I had just come home from work, exhausted and emotionally drained. Andrei was already there, sitting at the kitchen table, a grim expression on his face. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of anger and hurt. "We need to talk," he said, his voice low and strained. He told me that he had been offered a promotion at work, a fantastic opportunity that would require us to relocate to another city. It was a dream come true for him, for us. But when he had told Svetlana about it, her reaction had been anything but supportive. She had filled his head with doubts, telling him that I would never be happy in a new city, that I would resent him for taking me away from my new life, my new friends. She had even suggested that I was having an affair with one of my colleagues. I was stunned, speechless. The venom in her words, the calculated cruelty of her lies, it was all too much to bear. I tried to defend myself, to explain that Svetlana was twisting the truth, but Andrei was too hurt, too confused to listen. He saw only my hesitation, my fear, and he interpreted it as guilt. We had a terrible fight, the worst in our entire marriage. Words were said that could never be unsaid. In the end, he packed a bag and left, leaving me alone in the silent, empty house. I was devastated. The life I had so carefully rebuilt was crumbling around me, and it was all because of Svetlana. I finally understood. She hadn't saved me out of kindness or friendship. She had saved me because she wanted to control me, to own me. She had seen my vulnerability, my desperation, and she had used it to her advantage. She had built me up, only to tear me down. She had wanted me to be dependent on her, to be her puppet. And when I had started to find my own happiness, my own strength, she had done everything in her power to destroy it. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. The woman I had trusted, the woman I had loved like a sister, had betrayed me in the most cruel and calculated way imaginable. The days that followed Andrei's departure were a blur of tears and despair. I tried to reach him, but he wouldn't answer my calls or texts. His family, usually so warm and welcoming, now treated me with cold suspicion. I was alone, truly. Alone? For the first time since Svetlana had entered my life, the irony was not lost on me. The woman who had saved me from loneliness had now plunged me into an even deeper abyss. I knew I had to confront her, to understand why she had done this. I called her, but she feigned ignorance, her voice dripping with false concern. "What? Are you talking about darling Andrei left you? Oh, how terrible. I'm so sorry, I had no idea." Her words were like a knife twisting in the wound. I could hear the triumph in her voice, the thinly veiled satisfaction. I hung up, my hands trembling with rage. I decided to go to her house, to demand answers face to face. When I arrived, she opened the door, her smile wide and innocent, but her eyes, those cold, calculating eyes, betrayed her. I confronted her, my voice shaking with emotion. I told her everything I knew, everything Andrei had told me. She listened, her expression slowly morphing from feigned innocence to a chilling smirk. "Andrei told you that, did he?" she said, her voice low and menacing. "Well, he's not entirely wrong. I did tell him those things and more," she confessed, her words a torrent of venom. She admitted to poisoning Andrei's mind, to spreading rumors about me, to orchestrating the entire downfall of my marriage. Her motive, pure, unadulterated jealousy. She couldn't stand to see me happy, to see me thrive without her. She wanted me to remain dependent, broken, and alone. She wanted to be my only source of comfort, my only salvation. And when I had dared to find happiness outside of her, she had decided to destroy it. The confession was brutal, raw, and utterly heartbreaking. I stood there, numb, as she laid bare her twisted psyche. The woman I had once adored, the woman I had considered my sister, was a monster. And I, in my naivety, had welcomed her into my life, into my home, into my heart. I left Svetlana's house in a daze, the rain washing over my face, mirroring the tears that streamed down my cheeks. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Everything I had believed, everything I had cherished, had been a lie. My savior was my destroyer. My best friend, my sister, was a venomous snake. The pain was excruciating, a physical ache in my chest. But beneath the pain, a flicker of something else began to ignite. Anger, a cold, burning rage. I had been manipulated, betrayed, and left to pick up the pieces of my shattered life, but I wouldn't let her win. I wouldn't let her destroy me completely. I knew I had to fight back. Not for Andri, not for our marriage, but for myself. I needed to reclaim my life, my dignity, my sanity. The first step was to confront Andri, to tell him the truth, to explain Svetlana's malicious machinations. It wouldn't be easy. He was hurt, angry, and probably wouldn't believe me, but I had to try. I called him, and to my surprise, he answered. His voice was distant, guarded. I poured out my heart, explaining everything. The jealousy, the manipulation, the lies. I didn't expect him to forgive me or to come back to me. I just wanted him to know the truth. He listened in silence, and when I finished, there was a long pause. Then he spoke, his voice softer now, tinged with a hint of sadness. I don't know what to say, he said. I need time to process this, time to think. It wasn't a rejection, but it wasn't an acceptance either. It was a fragile thread of hope, a tiny crack in the wall of despair. I knew it would be a long and arduous journey, but for the first time in days, I felt a glimmer of strength. I had faced the monster, and I had survived. Now, I had to rebuild. Years have passed since that tumultuous time. Andri and I never fully reconciled, but we found a way to co-parent our children with respect and even a semblance of friendship. The scars of Svetlana's betrayal run deep, a constant reminder of the fragility of trust and the insidious nature of jealousy. I learned a painful but invaluable lesson. Not all saviors are benevolent, and sometimes the greatest threats come from those we hold closest. I rebuilt my life, piece by painful piece. I found new friends, genuine ones, who celebrated my successes and supported me through my struggles. I focused on my career, finding fulfillment and purpose in my work. I learned to trust my own instincts, to recognize the subtle signs of manipulation to protect my peace. Svetlana. I see her sometimes in passing, in the grocery store or at a mutual acquaintance's event. She always offers a polite, almost saccharine smile, as if nothing ever happened. But I see the flicker in her eyes, the subtle tension in her jaw. She knows I know. And I, in turn, offer a polite nod, a cool, distant gaze, because while she may have saved me from one kind of despair, she plunged me into another, a betrayal so profound that it left an indelible mark. And for that, I can never forgive her. The irony of it all still stings. The woman who pulled me from the depths of my despair ultimately became the source of my deepest wound. And in that wound, I found a strength I never knew I possessed. A strength born of pain, but a strength nonetheless.